Welcome back, guys, to our now episode number 3 with No Quitters with Dan Ray.
And Venny Saucedo. So today we have a special guest, someone who I've known for about 30 plus years. And we go way back to when we were struggling, trying to make ends meet and going through the ringer. And so without further ado, a great friend, owner of the onshore lending in Long Beach, has been in the real estate game 30 plus years. Good friend.
Thank you for
George
having me, Venny.
Briseño.
Appreciate you guys.
Welcome. Welcome. So, George, tell us where you grew up, your background. Tell us about that first.
I grew up in Baldwin Park, lived there 15 years.
Tough area.
Yeah, tough area. In the 80s, it was crazy. They have a ditch over there that I think they get grain out of, but that's where they said shoot the cholos and throw them off the ditch. So yeah, it was a crazy time. So just walking to school was a little crazy, but I was born actually in TJ. My family's from Sinaloa, and my mom had me when she was 15. She got divorced when I was like a year old, but she left my dad because my dad he's very intelligent. He just got caught up in wrong shit with my uncles, drinking, hanging out, and doing bad things. So she left Mexico, and I went through the El Paso Juarez border. I still have an ID somewhere. It's my work permit at 8 months old. My mom got a work permit when she did it at, I guess she was 16. We went to El Paso, and then my mom and my stepdad, which is my aunt's husband's brother. So
you guys were in Sinaloa.
Well, actually, my grandparents were Sinaloa. They moved to TJ.
Got it.
And then from TJ, I was born in TJ. I think both of my parents were born in Culiacan, Sinaloa.
Wow.
But I never been there. But my uncles, I think, had bad habits still from, that area. And,
Absolutely.
And that's how I came over. My mom got married. I was maybe 3 to 5 years old. We moved over from El Paso to, I think first we moved to El Monte, actually. I think I was 3 years old.
Okay.
And then we moved to Baldwin Park. So Baldwin Park, I started kindergarten at Baldwin Park to 11th grade.
Okay.
So I grew up those years. And, I read somewhere that it was a time that there was more gang violence in that time that I think in the Middle East. More people died in LA than in the Middle East. I heard that before.
I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on during that time. I mean, even if you look like a cholo, they would pull you up and just take you in.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
Aside from just the authorities having that stigma on us, but our own people. I mean, people are dying on the streets, gangbanging and all. It was chaos. Right. What kept you out of that? Or were you involved in gangbanging and stuff?
No, I wasn't involved in any of it. So my mom was very strict, very, very ridiculously strict, because she always reminded me that my uncles went down that road. And it wasn't a good road to go down, and how they were going to end up. And it wasn't, I saw how, I didn't want to end up like that. There was no glory in it. So, in the neighborhood, you had your drug dealers and you had your gangbangers and you had your crackheads and I was decently bright kid, even at 5, 6 years old. So when I walked to, school, we're little, we had to walk to school. We were really young. I didn't want to end up like any of these guys. So I had some common sense. Like, this is not it's not glory for me right here. So I didn't want to do it.
Got you. I mean, you must have had a tough mom, because you said she had you at 15.
Yeah, she made 15. Yeah.
Right. Imagine 15. Kids nowadays, having kids at 15, and being able to give another child advice on what not to do. Right.
Right. Yeah.
That's strong.
She was very, very rough. And it's funny because she was 20 years old when she checked me into kindergarten. It was K2, I believe. And I still have friends from K2, which is really nuts.
Wow.
And my mom checked me into the office. We're checking the office. The lady at the office, my mom only speaks Spanish. Mom was very light, beautiful light skin with her eyes even turned lavender. Beautiful woman. And everybody thought she was like a little girl, like a sister or something. Like this little 20-year-old girl's big little brother. And she don't speak English, right? Wow. And the lady that checked me in, Mrs. Quintana, which is really crazy. Mrs. Quintana checked me in, and years later, I ended up refinancing her house.
Really?
The lady that
checked
me in, yes,
to the kindergarten.
Yeah, her son became my friend.
Prospecting her.
Well, I grew up with her son all these years.
Got it.
And then when her husband unfortunately passed away, then she's had to do, realign her, financing and so I helped her out. Miss Quintana, she's still a friend of mine. So it's
wow.
It's
doing business with
crazy, right?
From back then,
from 5 years old.
So George, tell us, growing up in the neighborhood and in the rough area, what were the challenges that you had to deal with on a regular basis in life?
I think the challenges is just in life is what you say no to is more important to what you say yes to. So even if you're in the hood or you're growing up with bad things, I know that if you say no to more things, you get farther along in life.
Right.
So I said no to, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do,
how,
no
how old were you
gangbanging.
back then when you started saying, like, you remember a lot of stuff,
I remember
right?
a lot. I remember it very well. So I
Yeah.
remember like having like always absorbing knowledge
Mhm.
left and right. And
Right.
my comprehension's always been good, whether it's through life or through books. And I just was watching everything like, hey, I'm not going to do this. And
And how old were you? Like,
5, 6. I mean, I started seeing bad things when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. Like,
right, right.
I think they did try to kidnap me when I was like 7. I got out of the school bus and I went off the school bus. And I don't know why the teacher was riding with that day. And I got out of the school bus and I went around the bus in the back and a car was waiting. And then I went like back in the bus and the car moved. So I was kind of testing the car, like what it was doing.
Wow.
So I told the teacher, I go, hey, I think they're trying to kidnap me. She's like, you're crazy. You're a little kid. How are you going to notice that? So she walked out with me and she caught him. She caught the guy waiting for me. So then she got so freaked out. She walked me home herself. The teacher walked me all the way home and then.
Because kids used to walk home all the
It
time back then. Yeah. It was normal.
So you
you
had
that
to
kind of
be,
stuff right now, you're going to jail. Parents are catching a case.
Yeah. You had to be, my mom said like, listo. You have to be listo.
Yeah.
Watch everything. Watch everybody. And
So you had a certain alertness.
yes.
That most kids are like lollygag, they have
Yeah.
no idea what's going on. And
Right.
you were like, wait a minute, something's
that's
going on
not
here.
right. Yeah.
At that age.
Yeah. You have a gut feeling, it's probably right, You have a gut feeling, it's a lot of times it's right.
Wow.
But that's my advice in growing up is what you say no to is what gets you.
Right. What's interesting is that you were young, right? And you have to grow above the environment in order for you to say no, right? And you at such a young age are like, no.
No.
Right? You think that came from like having your mom? Because
My mom always said you can be born without money, but you have to have high class. So now I heard it the other day. My friend Paige said it in church. He said, low income doesn't mean low class.
Ooh.
So we're high class. You have to carry yourself high class.
Right.
So whenever you saw me as a kid, my mom had a lot of pride. Like, even if it's a T-shirt, make sure it's ironed.
Right.
You have shoes on, make sure they're clean.
Right.
So we always walked around like we're kings, or like even though
Absolutely.
we were kings. We were acting like we were kings as little kids.
That's badass to have a mom like that.
Yeah.
You know?
So
Dude.
she always had like you walk in like you're the baddest, most amazing person in the room. So just carry that with you. You can have the humbleness. You have to have the humbleness, but you also have the like think super highly of yourself.
That confidence in yourself.
Yes.
That's one thing I've always noticed about you, George, is you can be around anyone. I mean, you walk into the pantry and you'll start talking to everyone.
Right.
And this guy will meet random people because he just has that. He's not afraid to talk to people. And
Gotcha.
he's real.
I mean, you got definitely raised different. Where was your dad at during this whole time?
My dad passed away when I was 13 when he was in Mexico, and
Got
it's a bad car accident. And it's another story.
He never
but,
came out here.
That's if I have trauma in my life, that's the biggest one. So yeah.
Got you.
Yeah, that one hit me hard.
Wow.
I took that hit really hard.
And you were how old?
13.
You were 13 when he passed.
Yeah. That one, that was in life you have 12 rounds, 15 rounds. That was a tough round.
Yeah.
Shit.
I call that one. Everybody has tough rounds. That was a tough one, but.
So you were 13. You're over here with your mom by yourself, right?
And I'd go back and bury him in TJ and then come back.
And then your pops, that happened to your pops.
It's crazy. And then my uncles, the family fell apart because I was my grandma's favorite. She had 10 kids. So then my uncles went to prison. They got crazier. 2 of them overdosed I think one of them from heroin, from alcoholism.
Oh,
I mean, my dad's family fell apart really bad after that.
Wow.
Really bad,
Right.
Yeah.
So everything around you, there was bad influence in your dad's brothers, and things are happening to you, right? And you're at 13 years old when you're easily influenced by everything around you, right? And shit's going down, but you still have that in you to be like, you know what? I'm still gonna say no to everything that's around me.
It's just tough, and you're right. You can go to do drugs. You can be a gangster.
Yeah,
but you gotta be tough. You gotta and
absolutely.
it's not about being. It's not even. I'll be like I'm the toughest guy on the block. I don't want to see resilient.
Yeah,
maybe resilient. Like fuck that. I'm not gonna. Like that's your best hit. I don't know what it is.
Damn, I got the chills right now. Like damn, is this all you got?
Yeah, like
is this all you got?
I mean, if you hit a dude as hard as you can. And
you're still standing?
I don't know if you guys boxed or did anything, but if you hit a dude as hard as you can and he looked at you like, dude, that was it. It kind of takes your soul.
Yeah.
Fuck, I hit him with my hardest hit and he looked at me and smiled.
He took more than your soul.
You know what I mean? Like that's hard.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. So if I could do that to life, like, dude, that's the hardest hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the hardest you're gonna hit me with. And then still look back and be like, all right, fuck it. What's the next round?
Right. See, exactly,
right?
man.
And that's a tough. I mean, I'm gonna tell you that was the toughest round I had in my life. But fuck it, that's the hardest thing that could happen. Like, damn, all right, give me something else.
Right.
I think, and at 13 years old, learning that lesson, I was already tougher than, if something happened when 16 or 17, or you're living in you don't have food to eat one day, or some other shit happens. That's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like that was
right.
not that bad.
That's not that bad.
Then that day, nothing's that bad since that day.
I mean, you're growing up in the hood. It's not like you're out there in Mission Viejo or some other part,
Yeah, it wasn't like an entitled life. It wasn't a privilege, but I thank God that I went through all these tough things in my life, because it made me better.
What made you who you are now?
Yeah.
Right. Without those things, you wouldn't be who you are now.
Yeah. I'm appreciative. I'm grateful for it. I'm not gonna hate on nobody of it, or
Right.
I didn't curse God. I say, oh God, you took my dad. I was like, it is what it is. What are you gonna do? You gotta keep on going, keep on swinging.
Right. Right.
And I learned that at an early age. And I mean, it's tough at 13, because you're like a boy to a man.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't understand. You could be a boy, and then all of a sudden that testosterone kicks in, and you're angry, and you're going everywhere. You don't know what to do with all that. All that energy. That's why I'm surprised, because when you're 13, you're going through all that, and on top of that, everything else that you were going through, and you still said, you know what, I'm not gonna go through this shit. I'm gonna continue with your beliefs, right? And that you're saying, I mean, your mom brought you up really good, man.
Right. She was a positive role model. Now, you had a lot of role models that you knew who you didn't want to be like also.
Yeah.
And that helped you also. Yeah. And so going through these challenges, at what age were you forced to start working to help your mom? When did that happen?
My stepdad didn't want to buy me clothes after I was 12 years old. So I had to start cutting grass and doing everything I had to do in the neighborhood.
At 12?
At 12. So I wanted nice things. I had to start buying it myself. And I was also really blessed that I always consider myself an artist. I like music. I like dancing. I like, you know that part about me.
Don't make us start. Don't make us battle you right now, man.
You can't. So hip hop scene was coming in like 81, 82. And I started breakdancing when I was really young. And I thought it was a big outlet for myself. It was like the outlet of being a B-boy, and, cultivation, the creation of the culture. What we stand on today was, I am consider myself a pioneer of hip hop, and the Lord's crew, how we grew up, and we were on Soul Train, Party Machine, we're on a lot of shows,
on TV shows,
on TVs, and we battled
Soul Train. I remember that,
and we battled some of the best dancers, LL's dancers, Janet Jackson dancers, Madonna's dancers, we seen them at clubs and we battle them. This is the streets. This ain't the videos. We're very, it's a different world. So I think hip hop a lot. It was an outlet for my creativity. And I always consider myself as an artist first of anything, an artist even in life. And I think that really helped me a lot. I think that was a big part of the outlet. Even when my stepdad was doing that, and I had to start working at a young age. I still have work, but I still had an outlet. So it's something that really helped.
And you were surrounded with people like I know you've mentioned in the past the Black Eyed Peas. Now,
Black Eyed Peas,
were your friends back then? Like those guys.
They were
dance with them and stuff.
Yeah, I seen a lot of dance. I seen the Far Side. I seen anybody from LA. I would kind of run into them because hip hop was a small culture. Yeah. So when you were somewhere, you're like, oh, there's NWA. There's the Far Side, and there's Soul Brothers, Scheme Team. Some great dancers. My friends are the Beat Junkies, which they won the DMC contest, the greatest DJs also. It was DJ What and J Rock, and I was around amazing. When you're an artist, what you're around is what you're around. So if you're doing bad shit, you're gonna get more bad stuff. And
right.
You're around, probably financiers, you're around financiers, and if you're around, creative people, then you're probably gonna be around more creative people. So there was graffiti artist Slick in my neighborhood. I think he battled Hex. 2 out of 3 times. He lost, but Hex was amazing. If you know about graffiti, they're some of the best artists that ever did it. So yeah, it's we're blessed because for something to grow, it has to be the right temperature, the right climate, the right thermostat, everything,
and the whole environment.
And I feel like when we grew up in the 80s was the greatest environment for that seed to flourish. So I crack jokes. I said I'd rather be poor in the 80s than rich in today.
Right.
I'd rather be a billionaire today or be poor in the 80s. I'd rather be poor in the 80s.
Right.
Wow.
Because you're not going to get it. People are not living, especially iPhones. They're not living.
Right.
We were living the moment. We're living the Instagram post.
Yeah. You're not in the moment anymore.
Yeah, so I
be present.
Yeah, I don't believe that cultivation of the culture can be replicated ever again.
It's not. It's not.
You know,
It's
and
not.
I'm not saying nothing bad about it. I'm just saying it's just.
I mean, there's a technology overload on society, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for people to just focus.
Right.
Sometimes for more than a minute, right? But man, so you started working at 12.
I started working at 12. Yeah, I started working at 12, and I got back in the day they let you work at freaking the store around the corner.
You think kids nowadays can work at 12?
So I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they. No comment. But
no kidding.
They don't want to work at 25. Benny said.
Yeah.
That's why I started. Yeah, I'd any job I can get, I'd work, and worked in an electronics store at 16, and then we moved from Baldwin Park to Norwalk at. I was 17 years old, and then I worked like 3 jobs when I lived in Norwalk. I remember I had to.
You were 16
when I was 17. I was going to school. And okay, this is what happened. So I moved from Baldwin Park to Norwalk, and the transfers didn't transfer the credits because of different school districts and different this and that.
Wow,
it was a big old mess. So then I had to go to adult school to finish. They're like, do you either do another year in Norwalk High School or you do adult school? So I just did adult school, and that was a better route. But I was honestly I think the educo is Latin educate. It means educo, educate. I've always been a big on educating myself. Yeah. So what also happened in Baldwin Park was they had a program that if you went on summer to the library, they gave you lunch. Uh-huh. So what I did is I started reading books. So before I even started college or anything, I had already read like hundreds of books. So I had read hundreds of books before. So sometimes I see somebody on a podcast or see somebody, not saying anything bad, and they show a picture of a book. I found this book. I discovered it. I'm like, dude, I read that shit in like 89.
That's one thing.
Yeah. It's been a long time ago. Like I've been ahead of the game.
Ahead of the game.
So way ahead of the game.
I know that you're big on reading, and you've read I don't
books, even know.
The knowledge this guy has, and not only the Bible, the Quran. Like he's read. What if those books?
Right.
Like crazy shit.
I read a lot because I feel like to believe in yourself, large part is have knowledge of yourself. I did not like being in a room where I can't have a conversation with somebody, regardless what class they were.
Yeah. Right.
And whether we're talking to my people, Mexican people, or we're talking to other races, culture, I want to know everything about their culture. So I want to sit with them and tell them things about their culture they don't know. And they're like, have you been?
You're educating now.
Yes. And they're like, have you been to my country? Have you been to, Istanbul or something? I'm like, no, I haven't been to Istanbul. Well, the first Bible with Constantine was voted in, and they're like, wow, how did you know? Well, I read everything. Do you like to travel? Not really. I like to read books, but it's something that I know that really helped with every part of my life, and every conversation that I ever had was to have knowledge of self. That's very important to have knowledge of self. I was telling you last time where this guy, he's on Instagram. I'm La Raza. I go, the guy has no idea what La Raza is. That word gets thrown around like crazy. That word is from a book, 1925, called La Raza Cósmica. And we're Mexican. Most of 90% have never read the book. Don't even know it exists. Yeah. And it talked about the blending of the indigenous people with the Europeans. And that's what the book talks about. I actually recommended it to you.
Yeah.
And it's something that we throw around, and we monetize the word La Raza, but we don't know what it means. Well, people that know what it means, you sound like an idiot.
Right.
You sound uneducated, and you make me look bad.
Yeah.
You're the people that make me. I'm sorry to say that. You walk in that room and you don't look good. People speak a lot of hot air.
A lot of people speak that way.
Don't read the post. Go read the book.
Right.
Turn off your technology.
They'll read a post, and then they stand behind it, and they'll fight like that's knowledge, right?
Yeah, they have no knowledge.
As opposed to going out there and doing their investigation and by themselves.
Right. Take time off and read and then have an intellectual debate. Hey, what did you think about the book? Well, me, you, and Venny thought 3 different things about the book, but we read the whole book.
Yeah, our perspective is different, right?
Of what somebody else thought.
Yes, it's all watered down.
Right. No, it's what is it? Dilution.
Diluted.
And we don't have any higher level conversations no more.
Yeah.
Right. Because of these things happen.
So let me ask you this. You talk about going through the toughest rounds in your journey, which is your fight. Can you think of one of those rounds when you were ready to throw in the towel or quit?
I think that I know that even you guys and myself and the load a man takes is every day you wake up sometimes, and sometimes things don't go your way. I mean, you still have doubts. You still have the devil speaking in your ear and telling you, hey, you got hit with this one and you got hit with that one, and
you should just throw in the stop fighting.
I mean, it's not even till today. You know how our market is today. We have a good month and you have a shitty month.
Yeah,
And being a business owner, people throw the word entrepreneur around. I'm like, well, you're entrepreneur. How many leases do you have? How many employees do you have? How many things do you have? Because you're, come on, brother. I know it sounds good too.
Yeah, you're an entrepreneur on credit.
I don't know.
Running on credit, huh?
So I think when you take the chance and you are an entrepreneur, and it's okay if, you don't want to be one. I'm okay. I'm not saying one's better than another. Staying humble with it.
Absolutely.
But, the guys that are really, take the chance to have, their lease and their employees and all these different things. And the costs keep on going up for us. You guys know that. It's challenging every day. I mean, I feel like you want to throw in the towel for so many different reasons every day.
Right.
And, I mean, any part of your life. It could be super good. And you could be like, hey, I'm having a really good month. When's it going to go wrong?
What keeps you going?
Right?
What keeps you going?
I think my kids do. I know my kids, my family, the foundation. So that's big.
The challenges.
I'm sure it's for you. I'm sure for like being the father I never had.
Yeah. In spite of the challenges.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I don't just say this because you're one of my best friends, but this man right here is a prime example of a great fucking father. Who he is for his kids. Talk about greatness.
Badass.
Talk about greatness. All of them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Incredible. And I mean, having gone through the shit you went through and still said, I want this for my kids.
Yeah. I didn't want them to like not have a chance, whatever they did. And, it's my passion's deep in everything, man. It's like, I give you everything on this podcast. I give everything in life. Like, and I lose sometimes and you win, but your kids push you like you have amazing kids. And my kids are not perfect. They mess up every day. And, they have a, I don't say entitled life, but they have a blessed life. So it's different challenges that we don't know how to navigate because our challenge was just getting food and eating and having electricity. Their challenges is other challenges.
Right.
So I don't think we understand the challenges sometimes. But just trying to be a good dad, that's what you can do.
Absolutely. But you have a good foundation because when you don't have a good foundation, strong beliefs, it's easy to get swallowed up by a bad day.
Right.
Right. Let alone a bad week or a bad month. Right. People just lose it completely. But you keeping your head forward and up. Right. And continue to fighting through every adversity that you've been through is something that, we want to show our listeners because a lot of people out there, they call it quits at the first sign of adversity. As soon as it starts getting a little bit hard, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to try this anymore. Right. And you've been through a lot of things, quite a lot of things, right? From a young age down to when you were 16, 17, you started just reading, right? What made you be like, you know what, as opposed to just going out there and doing what everyone else is doing, right? You decided to join a group in hip hop, right? And then submerge yourself in reading and knowledge. Like, where did that come from?
I think it's just like deep in your heart, it's deep in your heart and you have a thirst for something yourself and follow the thirst of what you have in your heart. I know everybody has that and at some point they lose it. And maybe also because of the pain on one side, I had to submerge myself in instead of something bad, like I wanted something good, like creativity, hip hop, knowledge, and reading. Try to better myself. Maybe that's the thirst that had to be quenched somewhere, right?
Right.
So maybe that's where it was, and maybe we all have that, or you guys go through that too, and something drives you, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I don't want to put my energy here. I'm going to put it over here.
Right.
So it was dancing at one time,
Right.
and then I know that later on in life, you had a mentor that you met.
Yeah, Alvin. Yeah.
And then that was in sales, but then after that, you had a mentor that taught you martial arts.
Right. So I was doing all these jobs, and I went to Cerritos College for I wanted to be a fireman.
Okay.
Because I was pretty good athlete, and I think I ran a mile like 5-minute, 10-second mile by 12 years old or something like that. Like I can high jump my own height by 12 years old. So I was pretty athletic. So I was like, I'm gonna be a fireman, but I took EMT and I couldn't pass EMT because of the blood but I took psychology and real estate as backup.
Oh, gotcha.
So I don't even know why I took real estate. I just, I took it and
so I was working. You don't even know why
I don't
you
even
took
know
it.
Elective. Yeah, it was like I just don't take it. I mean, it was,
what
I'm
else
telling
is here? Let me do
real
this.
estate, psychology.
This sounds good.
So I showed up. I showed up to psychology class. Showed up to real estate class. But I was working. One of my jobs was Music Plus, where you rent out videos. Remember that? You have to rent out videos. There was no YouTube or Netflix back in the day. So these guys rolled up. I was 18, 19. These guys rolled up in Porsches and new Lexus. And if you do the math back then, math is very important. So the guys rolling up with a $50,000 car and the houses cost $100,000, $110. That's like somebody rolling up at a $500,000 car today.
Yeah.
So these guys are doing things that are like unheard of. So I was like, what are you guys doing? We're in real estate. And
They
I'm
were
like,
young.
They were young. They were all young. Alvin, Jesse, Joe, all these guys. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And we're selling real estate. We're starting a company. They're starting. What are you starting? Can I get on
Wall Street?
Do you have a car?
Yeah.
I didn't have a
It was
car.
like that.
I used to
We're gonna
walk
get into
everywhere.
that right now.
So I used to walk everywhere. I had a bus transfer. But like, what's this bus transfer? I go, bus transfer takes you 3 hours to get across the city. It takes forever. So I was like, I don't have a car, but this guy named Alvin, white guy, grew up in Bell Garden, super cool dude, one of the probably greatest realtors I've ever met.
Yep.
He goes, I don't speak Spanish, even though I grew up in Bell Gardens.
Yep.
And my friend Jesse speaks Spanish. He's got great sales doing Spanish. And anyways, he brought me on board. So it's like a story like you hear in the movies. 3 months, I kind of hung around the office. I go buy everybody lunch and sweep and do whatever. And the owner was Joe, and he wanted to kick me out every day, and I'd be there for 3 months. And then one out the Alvin goes, you're here every day, so I might as well hire you. So then he said, you speak Spanish, so we're going to start giving you all the Spanish leads. So that, there wasn't no like adjusting period, because my mom at that time got a divorce from my stepdad, and they had just bought a house like 6 months to a year before. So I had to start paying the mortgage. So there was it was like sink or swim.
At 18?
Yeah, something like, like 1920, around 1920.
Okay.
And the houses, people, they're not that much. They were like 110, whatever it was. It's a little kid paying the freaking mortgage. Like, you understand the responsibility.
Yes.
Kid goes from having no car to, hey, all of a sudden
Now
you
you're
got
paying the house.
You got to get a car. That's also a time that I don't have time to drink or smoke, because I got shit to do. And we got shit to do. You can't go do other.
Right. You don't have time to be depressed or any other stuff.
I don't have time for emotions. I need to pay this house. So Alvin gave me the chance, thank God he mentored me, he trained me. I look at him more like a brother than anything. And he gave me all the tools.
Alvin
Mullins, yeah.
Alvin Mullins.
He has, I think he has the biggest probate account in LA.
He's here local.
The LA probate guy. Dude, that guy's, I'm telling you.
He's an animal, bro.
Yeah, I've done thousands and thousands of transactions, and I'm super blessed that I was trained, if not the best, one of the best ever.
At that time,
ever.
when you were learning from him, Alvin and Jesse, those guys were doing
They're
what?
killing it.
15 deals a month.
We were doing the office itself, because it wasn't that many of us. So the first month we had 100 deals. It wasn't 10, 15 guys. It wasn't a lot of guys.
Joe didn't have a lot of people,
and then when they started,
killers.
They were all killers. And I think Alvin, our goal, my first year I worked with them, our goal was 80 houses sold, and we did 56. And remember, we had to memorize Thomas Guy's phone numbers. We had to memorize everything.
Thomas Guy.
That was their GPS.
We had to memorize everything.
Damn.
From Thomas Guy's is one of the, but we had to memorize the clients, which client bought which house, what name, what phone number. You memorize everything. You had to memorize everything.
Wow.
So it's
compared to now, they don't
you
have
had to
none of that.
You had to memorize You had to memorize. I mean, we're like Thomas Guy 7. It's in 736 D2.
In Compton.
That's where the house is. So it was it was pretty. It was a great. It was a great time. I appreciate real estate a lot, and I appreciate it also more at that time, because the brotherhood and everything that we had. I mean, we would go to conventions, and there was 100 tables, and one of them was Hispanic table, Mexican table. They're giving
and it
awards.
was the one that was kicking
and
ass.
Joe was the one killing it. Joe and I call Joe. He's like what is the Chicago Bulls? Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson.
And he had a bunch of
the real
Jordans.
estate
I call
business.
everybody there was a Jordan.
Everybody
was a Jordan. Like everybody there was a Jordan. And
Wow.
And Joe knew how to navigate and work with those personalities, because we had a couple of Rodmans in there too. So
they were fucking.
they were crazy.
They would throw down in the office.
They fought in the parking lot.
fought.
But they were
Somebody
great, they were
somebody
great in
told
the sport.
No, wait. There's a story. Some guys was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, somebody's breaking into your car."
Yeah.
And it was one of the guys. They all ran out. They fucking
Yeah.
beat the shit out of those guys. And then there was a pursuit, a car chase in the city. It was out of control.
No alarm needed back then.
They picked the wrong office.
They picked the wrong. I don't think we ever got messed with after that. I think they crashed their car into their car, and they beat the hell out of Cholos.
Wow.
I remember they got the Cholos. They put him in the cop cars, and the guy had a bunch of red marks in the back of his head, because I think Joe or John were punching him.
And these guys were
These guys were CIF wrestlers, dude. So they're
all state.
Yeah, they're not gonna. They're gonna.
No.
That was a wrong office. Yeah.
And we're gonna have Joe on the show too.
Yeah,
I've
Joe,
asked him.
Jimmy, and
He's gonna
John.
be
Those
ready
guys
to-
are not. That's not a good idea. No.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think we could.
You picked
So
the
those
wrong
mentors that
office.
brought you in
Mhm.
taught you sales. What else?
Yeah.
What did you learn from these guys?
The biggest part I think with Alvin was always with clients, you don't sell the item. It's more yourself. So Alvin always be reflective of the client.
Okay.
So it's something that Alvin was. That's what he's a master at, and he reflect the client, how his energy is, the kind of person he is, and he was a master at like what's going on, who's the decision maker here, So that was the biggest part of it. And he said people want to be like somebody that's like themselves or like they admire. It's basic psychology. So if you're like the client, reflect how the client is. You know, how he
Right.
talks, how he speaks, how he sits,
Right.
and pay attention to their needs.
Right.
It's not about you. It's about the client's needs. And
Right.
it's always, it's a very big, my friend that worked for Goldman Sachs, he made like $2 million a year. And he had a long conversation, which Alvin was really good at. Alvin was long-term greedy. My friend at Goldman Sachs is long-term greedy. Goldman Sachs is long-term greedy. What that means is when the client comes in, you don't look at that check. You don't look at that moment. You look at, hey, how can I build that? Go so deep in that relationship that I'm going to get 10 deals for this one client.
Right.
You know, you don't look at that moment. You're not like that instant gratification for that one check.
I think that's something that all realtors kind of lost nowadays. They're treating clients like transactions, and then they get mad.
They need a paycheck.
Right. Then they get mad when the client treats them like an option.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
It's a relationship build business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a relationship build business, and you know that. Like, you know, a good relationship, and even with your, you know, investors, flipper, whatever, you build that relationship because, you know, you could do 10 deals and one deal could go south. So you have to keep a good relationship because sometimes you don't have the perfect deal, and sometimes deals, we've lost money, we've lost deals, we lost,
of course.
But you try to keep the relationship good and say, hey, sometimes you lose around. It's in business too. So but yeah,
and it is a relationship based business, right? But not just with the people that you work with, anyone involved, right? And you could be just saying hi or bye or getting upset at your next client, right? So when you live this life, it's everything's relationship based. You got to treat everyone kind of the same,
and to put yourself in their shoes.
Right.
Sometimes, I mean, I've had clients that like, you know, I'm 9 months pregnant. I'm about to go off pregnancy leave. I need to find a house this weekend because I'm going to, you know, it's the pressure's on, and, you know, she's stressed out. So you have to be like, don't think like you as a salesperson. You know, have compassion about, hey, this client, I can't rush her out of the car. I can't rush, you know, maybe I have to go over and look at the house myself and run back and say, I think it's worth you getting out of the car because some houses might not be for her. So put yourself in every single person's shoes.
And some other realtor might be like, oh, you're already 9 months. You know what? Maybe it's too much for me. I don't want the deal.
Well, I don't have time for this.
They make it about themselves.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot of.
I see that.
I think with me, I teach a lot of psychology with it because I don't know what the realtor school is or the realtor. I really we're so old school.
Yeah.
That I think we just come from a different era where we played. I mean, I can close so many people, you know, like, you know, I've had like the 25 agents, and I'm like, second offer, I got them in escrow, and, you know, I just, you know, so
that's the talent that this guy has, is the ability. He would hear a message because back in the day they would write ads, and people would call and say, yeah, I'm calling about the house that you have, call me back. Like, he got so good that he knew who to call first because they were more serious than the other ones, just with the tone of voice.
Yeah. I could tell by their voice.
Yes.
I could tell by their voice a lot of, I don't want to say like I read people, but I could tell.
But you do read
I kind of do. Like when I meet somebody, I'm like, oh, that person's trying to do this and they're trying to do that. And they don't even know they're trying to do that. Like I'm like 5 steps ahead of them.
Yeah.
You know, it's
a chess game.
It's the longer the pause, you know, we always say like the longer the pause, the worse the credit. How's your credit? You know,
the longer
900.
The worst.
It's never going to be good.
I mean, that's like that. I mean, you could take that with you as a.
Yeah.
I always joked around about this.
I'm not. It's
He's
a
like,
joke.
bro, we would be in Newport Beach at a restaurant, and he's like, bro, no one under 780 in here.
Nobody's under 780. You already know.
We're rolling around with a whole bunch of 600s.
Right. Sometimes 400 if it's a long pause.
Here's one thing I always admired about you, and we used to joke around about this, and this is 30 plus years when I first met him. He would always say, hey, Venny, all right, I'll see you. Don't forget to throw the rope over again.
Right, throw the rope over the wall.
After you came over the wall, right? Don't forget to throw it back for the next one. You know, help them over. Yeah. And that's one thing that you've always been good about, helping people and being a giver.
We try to do the best that we can. I mean, you know, sometimes you get a client and you can't sell them the house, you can't get the loan, but there's a 6-month game, there's a year game of helping them.
Yeah.
And, you know, one time at All Stars, when we were there, I remember a guy came in and he had a burned face, like a chemical burn, and nobody wanted to help him. And I said, I don't know, you know, people, I don't know what it was or what it wasn't. And I went up there, started talking to him. I sold him a house, I think on Colima Street in Whittier. I think that's where the house was. And I sat with him for like an hour. He said, I'm on a lawsuit with my company and I got a chemical burn and I'm going to have, I know which house I want. I'm going to get a check and I'm going to get all cash. I'm going to call you. I said, look, here's my number, whatever you need. And, you know, I stayed with him and, you know, he walked out and sure enough, he came back like 2-3 weeks later and I sold him a house all cash.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's something that you always try to help people. And sometimes, like I said, it's not that minute, not that second. you try to do your best. That's all you can do, and try to. Like our community, I don't feel like just real estate, but we have a very individualized community. Even though we're like, Hispanics are gonna be like the largest population by 2040 in the Western United States. They say by 2060, all United States.
Yeah.
So whether they close the border, or they don't. It's gonna happen already. It's already done.
We're growing fast.
The seeds are planted. We have an average of 3 to 4 kids each. So, like I said, numbers are really important. They're very fast. So that's a great number to have. But if we're not helping each other, which is why we said, hey, when you make it over the wall, throw the rope over. Don't build the wall higher.
Yeah.
So I always said that because we still have that today. Like, if you see some other guy doing very well, and I'm not talking just monetize well, there's always some little hate. Somebody always has like a little hate. And it's like, dude, hey, that guy's like, he's pretty joked and he's doing good and he's working out and he's making money. He's good. Look at good wife, good kid. Why can't we be like that? And why don't we align yourself in alliances together? I see the Jewish community do it. I see other communities do it. And I've always noticed we've always lacked that. And unfortunately, our industry, other industry, everybody wants, unfortunately, kickback or something.
What has to change?
I think that mentality of we're part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Just start doing it yourself.
You're part of the solution.
Lead by example.
Because somebody asks you for something and, hey, I want a kickback or I want you to help me first. Or tell them, hey, I'm not part of the problem. Well, everybody else does it. That's why there's another problem and another problem. Now you have a whole city doing it. You have a community doing it.
It becomes the norm.
It becomes a norm. Everybody's doing a little, no tranza, no avanza, they say in Spanish.
That's
why. Why is that more popular than, hey, I'm gonna do my very best and you do your best and let's help each other
and let's raise each other.
Yes, let's raise. And then it's a mindset that's just so, we don't have a cultivation, a creation of our culture. Our culture it's lacking. We don't have leaders. The leaders that we do have, like on Instagram, you hear those guys talk. I'm sorry, I laugh. I'm like, God, I know you have 100,000 followers, but they're swallowing this nonsense. This is nonsense.
Right.
Who's leading who?
I always joke around. I said Jesus had 12, Hitler had millions. So you got to be careful with that.
That is true.
You got to be careful with. So I think as responsibility as you guys and us is, even if you have 5 people listen to you or 10 people listen to you, I'd rather have like 5 that are amazing than 100,000 that are freaking.
Even if it's just one.
I mean, it's I'm really big with my kids with that. I always say my kids are they're amazing children, but I said like I tried my hardest to make them the very best. And I tell them like Kiana was doing jiu-jitsu for Pan Am's and she won 2 gold medals doing, but I go, babe, you represent for our people too. Like you're fighting against Brazilians, you're fighting against everybody. I say you need to be like the very best. Tristan too, like you represent. Maybe wear your culture on your back. Maybe wear your ancestors on your back, and I'm not gonna betray people no more.
Right.
Because then you're betraying the future.
Right. And a lot of people out there don't even like saying they're Latino or Mexican or any of that.
Well, we're not under Hispanic rule, so we're not Hispanic.
Right.
Correctly, we're not under Latin rule, so we're not Latino really.
Right.
We're Mexica.
Mexica,
We're Mexica. I embrace my native side. I feel like it's always give my spiritual. The spiritual side is very important. It's like almost like a superpower.
Right.
And I feel like, when I always joke around, it's how come that when the Indian danced and he did the rain dance, it rained?
Right.
What did we lose? We lost something. So I always try to go back and touch on that, right? How do we do that?
Right.
How do we touch on that? How do we embrace that? How do we, and that's the big part of really La Raza, not the post.
Right. I mean, very few people know that that's where we came from, right? Mexicas. Very few. I mean, everything is being watered down and watered down and watered down. I'm still interested. You got pushed into real estate, right? And then you were there for 3 months. Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're taking all of our Spanish leads. How did that turn around for you?
I could count down. I sold 1 out of every 28 people that I spoke to. I even had a number.
Yeah.
So if I talked to 28 people, I was going to get a sale.
That was your number?
That was a number. 28 was my number.
So if I call 1 out of every 28 that I call,
they were in escrow.
They're in escrow.
Yeah, they were. I had that number down. And Alvin gave me a lot of responsibility. He was the kind of guy that shows you once, he doesn't show you again. Old school,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean that made me learn very fast. And he was very generous. He taught me how to do flippers. At my 22 years old, I was doing flippers. So he taught me the right way to do things too.
Right.
I didn't really don't know a wrong way to do things because I wasn't really taught that. So when somebody says they're doing that, I kind of stayed in my lane. You
don't even entertain it.
I wasn't. My values are not that, and I wasn't trained like that anyways.
Got you. I mean, just on your upbringings, being surrounded by a lot of the stuff that you were surrounded by,
Right.
you were quick to just be like, no,
I
don't even want to entertain that.
It wasn't a space for me.
Right.
It still isn't a space for me now. And it is a harder, I think that we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But I feel like when you try to live the righteous road, the devil's always trying to knock you,
Oh yeah.
So he's always trying to hit you from different directions. So it's, if you're going to do a little bit something
1000%,
a little off the course, it's going to be easier to get $10 million,
Right.
$5 million,
Yeah.
But if you make $100,000 decently, that's why I admire our blue collar,
Right.
Our blue collar workers that we have, the mechanics, the plumbers, those guys they're putting their hand. God, man, I admire them. I really do, because every day they're just grinding it out and making an honest living. It's like, and they're not going off their course, and that's a tough job, man. Those guys.
Absolutely.
When I drive up to like Oxnard, you see guys picking the vegetables and stuff.
Yeah.
I show my kids, man, look at these guys. Like, you want to talk about hard work? They thought Kobe worked hard. Kobe,
Right.
Throw Kobe. I mean, no disrespect to Kobe. He was dope, but
Yeah.
come on, you go out there for 1 hour, bro. Like, I don't care who you are in the NBA or in any other. Those guys work hard, man. Those guys, put those guys on posters. Give them a deal.
Right.
Sponsor
They
those
deserve
guys,
the spotlight.
right?
Absolutely.
They really work hard. I admire that.
So you and I always laugh and talk about how society has gotten soft, but we use different words to
Right.
identify that. But
Bubble wrap.
what's the bubble wrap kids,
The
right?
bubble wrap
The bubble
kids,
wrap.
Yeah.
So what's changed? Because we fucking sat in the back of the trucks, we drank from a water hose, we played in the streets.
Walked to school when you were 5 years old.
You rode your bike to baseball practice 5 blocks away.
Yeah.
The
on
next
your bike.
city.
Well, what happened was, you heard I heard a podcast with Patrick B. David, Anthony Robbins, and they were talking about, hard times make, tough people, great people. And I had an uncle that, born in Great Depression, went to World War II, fought for Navy and Marines, 17 medals in World War II. And man, that guy was my Uncle Mel, bless him. Toughest guy I ever met in my life. Like, he would crack a joke, he'd laugh, and he's a white guy from Arkansas. White guy from North Dakota, married my aunt, and they never spoke Spanish, never spoke English. They were married forever. It was. I mean, they really loved each other, because I even go through all this stuff, and my uncle would tell me stories about.
Wait. One of them didn't speak English.
My uncle's white. My uncle's white. Mel Tracy, and then Mel Tracy white, and he spoke English. My aunt Lydia only spoke Spanish.
Maybe that's why they worked out.
Maybe that's why they
worked. They'd understand.
But yeah, my uncle Mel grew up, and he told me stories about his time, and his time made my time look soft.
Yeah.
Born Great Depression, World War II, enlisted and lied about his age to go to World War II, and Anthony
He
Robbins,
wanted to go.
Yeah, and Anthony Robbins talking about these tough times make these great men.
Yeah.
And I don't think that all the kids are, overall maybe, but I think like there's 5% of these kids that are amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe my children and your kids that are, I tell my kids, they're gonna do something, you better do it 150%. I'm gonna be on you. You better give it everything. And maybe society has, things got easier. You can Uber Eats, you can do this, you can do that, and you can order food, and everything's on your phone, right?
Yeah, you don't have to leave your house.
So that's of course the technology of course has watered things down to people, comfortable to
lazier.
Yeah, and I don't want to say I don't say everybody, because I want to just tell it. People are like every kid.
Just fucking say it though.
I said, there's some kids that I go to wrestling tournaments. The little kid's 8 years old, and the little kid's amazing. You're like, man, that little 8-year-old he's a killer.
Yeah.
Talk to the kid. He's had 3 workouts that day. You're like, what the kid? Kid's 8 years old. He's like,
right.
NCAA D1 over here.
Yeah.
He's 8 years old. So there is some kids that are amazing. My son trains sometimes 3 hours a day. Kiana trains 3 hours a day. So there's some kids that are amazing. But overall society, there's always going to be those kids right now that, I call them, they're sleepwalking. They're wearing PJs and Crocs. They're walking on the street. They don't even get dressed.
And they still get a participation trophy.
Yeah. I don't know what happened, and I don't know what's going to have to change with that part of it, but definitely society and that instant gratification and that shortcut has came in. They think everything's a shortcut, and it's not.
Right.
Everything's hard work, and I think we know it's hard work, and they need to experience that hard work. I think if they experience that hard work, then you're doing them a favor.
They'll appreciate things.
I think you're robbing them if you don't let them go do all that hard work.
You just said something that we used to have a family mastermind meeting every Sunday. Gus and I would educate and teach our nephews and nieces, and one of them said, I think we were robbed from the experiences that you guys had growing up, And it's not fair to us that we didn't go through those challenges that you had.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd be tougher. And I was like,
Yeah, it's true.
fucking, you have a point. He said
He does have a
exactly
point.
that. He was 13 when he said that.
Yeah, that's a break.
You have a point. You start work tomorrow. Right?
I'm gonna wake up at 6.
Yeah, you're waking up at 3 a.m. now.
Right. Yeah. But yeah,
But it's true though, right? But what do they do about that, right? Because sometimes we hear it, and did they do something about it?
It's tough. Yeah. That is tough.
Because that's a strong kid right there. They did get robbed of this. Society has becoming watered down and soft. Right. This is exactly why we built this, because people are quitting. They tried things once or twice and they quit left and right. They don't stick to their word. There's no more word. There's no more any of that.
And it's not even that they quit, that they don't even know that they're quitting. They just make it a norm to be average,
right,
or below average, that they don't even know they have the ability, being around someone that can teach them something new, that they can experience life differently. Just being around someone,
right,
there are new possibilities. They have no idea.
Right.
And that's why it's important to have, like you said, leaders.
Yeah, leaders. And I read this morning, Dyson, he failed like 5,000 times. Dyson vacuums.
Wow.
5,000, dude.
Wow. That's a lot.
Failing,
that's a lot.
Talk about failing forward. 5,000 times he failed. So I was like, if you could take that and be like, wow, he failed. Imagine how good he feels. So 5,000 times. And, I believed it. I was delusional enough to believe it.
Wow.
So be delusional enough to believe in your hard work. You pray on it and you pray on it in a positive way. Gratefulness. You pray on it and you work hard. There's nothing you can't do especially today's technology and these kids. Everything's there for them.
Right, but you said belief.
You gotta believe
has
it.
To be a
delusional
belief
belief.
that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's gotta be delusional. It's gotta be like, everybody's gonna tell me that I suck and I'm gonna get no likes on Instagram and be like, yeah, you'll see one day.
Watch.
Yeah, you'll see. And then one day when you do it, it's probably fills your heart better, right? You feel good about it, that hard work, Like they say, in that first sale that we ever did as kids, probably the best feeling.
Absolutely.
The first sale, like, man, I just grind. I got that first sale. I remember my first check. I was like, oh, my first real estate check.
You're young right there.
Yeah, I was like, man, what the hell? All these zeros? Commas move?
From working at the music store
for $7 an hour
to getting a check. What was your first check?
I don't remember what it exactly, but I remember it wasn't $7 an hour. I remember somebody moved the comma, and I was like, I want to keep on moving it over. It's possible to move it over, but that was, and helping my mom. That was inspirational to. Sometimes when we paid everything, I didn't have much for myself. So it felt good that my mom had the house and the utilities, everything was paid. It made my heart feel good, So it's
absolutely. I mean, you took on those challenges early on, right?
So it's,
and you've done that throughout your life, being helpful.
Just try to, But like I said, we're not. None of us are perfect, so we all have our challenges too. Like,
so what would you tell the bubble wrap community right now? What would they have to do to snap out of that and hit greatness?
It's like peeling away the onion. You got to get through all those layers. You got to get to the core of it, and you have to peel away all the ugliness. You have to peel away like, oh, I don't want to work 12 hours, and I don't want to do this, and everything you don't want. Just go do it. The magic's in the work you haven't done. Right? They say that the magic's in the work you haven't done, and just go through it and go through it. Sometimes it takes a month, a year, 5, 10 years, but believe in yourself delusionally enough to that, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and you're going to do it. For today's kids, they have that instant gratification feeling. So you have to completely get rid of that.
They have that microwave mindset.
You got to get rid of it, dude. We're grilling in the backyard. Let's have the charcoal for a couple hours first.
Yes.
We're not microwaving. So
we're marinating this thing.
Yeah, it's going to take time. Yeah. So it's smoke it too. You have to smoke it. But it's going to take a lot of time to get to that, when I was learning martial arts, it took me like a year to learn a Muay Thai kick.
Right.
It took a freaking 1 year. And I remember like, man, it took me to learn one kick. And I wasn't focused on, I need to learn it this moment. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get the kick.
Eventually
you got it. And anything in life that you put yourself, you're going to, whatever you're, writing a song or you're playing music, and one day you're going to get it. And once you get it, you're like, oh man, I knew I could do it. That feeling is better than any other feeling, I believe. But it's just because all that hard work.
Yeah.
So the instant gratification, I would say, these kids, for today's kids, put that aside and take all the discomfort and take all the criticism and take all that and just wrap it up and just to make it keep on going forward.
So they have to be okay with delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And all the price you gotta pay,
And
and
all the
the hurt
comments,
and the
yeah,
pain,
yeah.
and
Right.
to have it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just said that. I mean, I think a lot of people don't size up whatever they're getting into, and they think that, well, it looks easy, right?
Right.
Oh, there's this guy fighting. He's a black belt. Oh, look, it looks so easy.
No, it's hard.
But then they go in there and then they get their ass whooped.
Yeah.
Oh shit, it wasn't as easy. I quit.
It's not gonna be. I mean, especially martial arts, very very difficult. I mean, 0%. What 1% of the world can really fight? Like they say,
Right, yeah.
That's crazy. But you know, I read this story one time also that the guy said there was a hotshot stockbroker. I'm sure you heard the story. The stockbroker, he got hired. He was a hotshot, so he's making all this money. And then he loses $1 million. He got brave. He got too cocky. You know, he lost $1 million. He went back to his boss and he goes, "Man, I know I'm fired. I lost $1 million." He goes, No, we just invested in your education. That $1 million loss, you'll make it back up.
Wow.
So
that was our lesson, $1 million lesson.
Exactly. So I think that
Jeez.
if we take our losses like that and our failures like that, it's just the lesson.
Like an end result.
Yeah.
They take it like an end result.
You know, you
Right.
guys have stories like that. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
hold on, I lost that, but what was the lesson of you know, that situation? You know, I had a client one time walking and looking at a house, and I remember being rejected for so many things. First of all, I was young at one point, right? You're 20 years old, we look like you're 12, and I remember we were doing another open house, and a client walked in, and the lady was very difficult. You know, she knows everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, I saw 5 open houses today, and another agent, and she was very stern. And in this house, and I already have an agent, and she was just going off, right? Now I've done this 100 times, and there was many lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at her, I'm just like smiling. So, you know, let her get it off, you know, let her get her
Blow her fuse.
Yeah, and her husband's right there, and she's the
Yeah,
boss,
yeah.
right? And I said, well, she's just letting me have it, and I have an agent. And I paused for a second. Oh, ma'am, was your husband the first man you ever went out with?
Wow, that was bold.
That was bold.
And she said, and she looked at me and she started cracking up. And she thought that was the greatest.
The greatest opener.
Closed her that day. Right? So that you have to be, again, the lessons, if I wouldn't have lost so many angry wives coming through open houses, hating realtors,
You wouldn't have been able to say
I
that.
wasn't able to make her crack up and laugh and
Right.
time it like a comedian and be like, oh, now we're ready to close.
Absolutely.
That'll be the last agent you ever have, right?
That's one of your superpowers, bro.
Right? You have to know when to close that.
That's a superpower.
But I learned it from failing.
Of course.
Well, how many clients you have to fail then? You know, either they sell you or you sell them.
Right.
Like you said, to perfect that.
Yeah, because they leave and you have to feed your kids, and if they leave, you can't feed those kids.
Right.
So that again, part of that is hard work and failing, and we're still. I mean, I don't want to say we're failing, but look what we deal with every day. How's a 10-year bond? How's the rates? How's this? Every day we're dealing with something. So
Getting bombarded. Life
we're
is
getting
life.
we're like, man, throw me a bone today. Like, can we get a break today? Right? You know,
Absolutely.
it's real estate in the last year, 70% of agents just sold one property of that, and mortgages, we went from 400,000 lenders to 98,000. That means out of 4 lenders,
75%.
yes, out of 4 lenders, 3 left. That's last man standing game now, right?
Yeah.
Because there's nobody, and real estate is going to be the same way. Real estate, if a realtor sold one house, 70, God, you better be professional real quick. You better get professional. These little gimmicks and games, they're not going to last much longer.
You got to separate yourself.
Yeah, it's not, there's
That's strong there because a lot of people don't get it. Right.
No, you gotta be educating yourself.
Where everything that's coming in, AI and
Right.
everything that's coming in, people don't want to increase their skills. They want things to get easier. If they never say, hey, you know what? I don't want things to get easier. I got to raise my skills.
You gotta sharpen the knife.
Yeah. And that's great advice right there, man. Yeah. We have a lot of people that they say, you know what? If I could go back, I would change this. Right. And then we have other people that say, you know what? Everything that I went through made me who I am. Which one are you?
Yeah, I don't want to change anything. I wouldn't change nothing at all. Nothing. Especially not the failures, especially not the losses, especially not the hurt, the pain. It makes me more passionate.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't have gone through everything you've gone
It
through,
makes me passionate. Look at my eyes. There's no freaking blinky. There's no freaking. I'm gonna give you
Yes.
150. And if we wouldn't have gone through that, you wouldn't have gone through what you went through. You wouldn't have been that soul wouldn't have been that.
right.
He wouldn't have been that either.
Right.
So I wouldn't change any of it. Like, if anything, give
Absolutely.
me more shit.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
Give me another one, like, because then, I
Getting
don't
tougher.
want to. I'm sorry, like, I think through life, There was a movie that I watched one time, and the girl goes to reflect on her story. She was a Yakuza. She was the Yakuza, and something went sideways, and they were going to kill her. She's Japan. So the assassin walked in the door, the ninja assassin, because she did something wrong with the Yakuza, which, it's the organized crime in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Very organized. They send their kids to Harvard,
Yeah.
Very intelligent.
Yeah.
They got the 3/4 tattoos or the whole tattoos. And so long story short, they run Japan pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And then the assassin walked in, and she knows she's going to die. And he looked at her and he goes, I'm going to make this fast. She goes, hold on. She goes, make it really like long and painful, because I want to remember how beautiful life was.
Wow.
So
that is deep.
Yeah. She wanted to be like, just,
yes.
Don't just chop my head off. Just let me have it.
Yes.
Let me suffer. Because and it messed up the assassin so bad. He went crazy.
Wow. She won that war just
she
by.
Did, yeah.
Wow.
She broke him because she was so, again, if life had to be that hard for it to be that beautiful, I wouldn't change it for either.
Right.
I wouldn't change it. I would have like, now leave it alone, because it reminds me how life is that beautiful.
Right. And a lot of our listeners, they just think, you know what? Problems are coming and they just want to give up, right? But every one of us goes through issues. We all get problems. It's not like problems are reserved for the broke or the ones that are raised by a mom or stuff like that. We all get them in all different shapes and forms, right? And it's that understanding that you're talking about how beautiful life is, that you got to understand that you're going to go through some adversity, but at the end of the day, you're still living, right? No matter what, God keeps on waking you up every single day, right? And what we choose to do with this is going to make or break and determine where we're going with our lives.
Right.
I heard you say many things, right? But something that was sticking out was, the enemy this and God that, right? It looks like you're a faith-based man.
Very, very faith-based. I don't want to say, whatever religion, whatever you pick, it makes you a better person. Embrace it.
Right.
I'm always like, hey, if you're Jewish, Catholic, Christian, whatever makes you a better person, embrace it. Now, to push it on other people,
that's different.
I don't know how that would work. I mean, I don't, that's a whole other, but spiritually wise, I'm very aligned with God. I'm very, very aligned with the Creator. People are like, I don't believe in a God. Well, to have a creation, you have to have a creator. So
right.
You do.
Yes.
Even if you don't, you already acknowledge them, number one. Number two, you can't have a product without somebody producing it. So there's no way God, a higher source, it has to be there.
Right.
So I always, I have a lot of conversations with God. I always talk to God. I have a lot of faith in God. Like, I just, 1,000%, even as a child.
Your unwavering beliefs.
When things were going sideways like crazy, I would just be like, man, come on, God, you're like, and I think I know my journey's not done. I feel like He still blessed me to, if I can educate or, especially our people, and can bring them to a real leader, real knowledge, and I know what I'm actually talking about. Yep. Please reach out.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to give you this sugar-coated or this marketable or profitable conversation. No, I live an amazing life. I tell people, like, sometimes I say things, but like, I'm insulted. Well, whether you're insulted or not, I just told you the truth. And I live an amazing life. So I have no, people are like, well, you're being a hater. I don't hate on your life. My life is probably 1,000 times better. There's no attachment to the conversation. You can be doing better or worse. I'm just telling the truth. Yeah. So I think people appreciate the truth. And if they don't appreciate it, then so be it. Right? It doesn't mean that, we take labels off, and if God has your back, then what?
Right.
What? Like, nothing.
It's a relationship that you have.
There's nothing that you can't really, there's nothing you can't do or can't influence.
Exactly.
I believe, like, even us being here, it's like, like, hey, let's give them some put something real food on their plate,
Absolutely.
So, thank you for having me, because, like, you guys are brave.
Thank you, man.
It just takes courage. It takes courage to stand out and do the right thing. And,
that's something that we pride ourselves on, because we do see the need for leaders to rise. There's a lot of people that are walking around with a lot of blessings. They're just not using them, right? They're afraid to fail, or, there's whatever little reason is stopping them, right? And the hope is that they see it and then they just rise. Yep. Because sometimes it's just those little things that's stopping someone from just flowing.
If you look at life, if you're God's reflection of self.
Yes.
So we'll get a little deep on this one.
Sure.
So if you're God reflection of self, why would you not want to do that?
Right.
If you have God reflection of self, why do not believe in yourself?
Right.
If you see God reflection of self of another person, that's why you could talk to anybody.
Right.
Because if you're talking to somebody, it's God reflection of self. You're like, oh man, he's just another.
Yes. I think about that all the time, because I did say faith-based.
Yeah.
I didn't say religion. I'm myself, right. I'm faith-based myself. I don't believe in religion, but I talk to God all the
Right,
time.
yeah.
You can ask my girlfriend, but I talk to God all the time, right? But at the end of the day, it starts with us, right? And what we're going to be doing for our community. And if we don't start setting up a foundation with strong pillars and start influencing our youth and everyone around us, where are we really going with this?
It's just empty. It's gonna be an empty situation, and part of the structure of itself, like, hey, you believe in this, and then I believe in it, and then Vinny believes in it. So we're like, let's just say God is a body, and we're just trying to create an organ.
Right.
We're just little cells.
Right.
So then it has to all come together like that. So this body has a lot of cancer right now, right?
Yes.
So we're trying to bring as like one cell, another cell, and then you create an organ, and then you create a community, and then that's why you have, the higher level conversations that we're having about, we talk about God and we talk about.
Right.
This is very important because it's the foundation.
Absolutely.
Hard work, no God, doesn't,
No.
God, no hard work.
True.
It doesn't go nowhere. Yes.
So you have to have, people are like, we always talk about, I'm going to manifest.
See, that's different that you said God, no work, because a lot of people think, well, you know what, I'm just going to pray for things.
Yeah, you can't, no.
No, it doesn't work that way, man.
No.
God will put everything in there, but you got to do the work, right?
Sometimes you pray for things, you get shit worse. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But then,
I'm just going to make it a little bit more difficult because I've been giving everything to you and you just don't do
or
anything
just
with it.
the test is just a little bigger.
Yeah.
The test, it doesn't mean that it's not going the right direction. You're praying for it. It's just showing up in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're going through a hard time. Our business is going through a hard time, and because of the market, whatever's going on. But then you talk to somebody else, and they're really going through something 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're like, man, I'm trying to get out of my situation,
Right.
and get out of what I'm going through. But then I gotta go. My heart tells me right now I gotta help that person more.
Right. And a lot of times
It's like,
you're
man,
stuck in yourself, and the solution was there all along.
Yeah. So it's a tricky situation. I guess awareness would be,
Mm-hmm.
maybe awareness,
Yes.
faith and awareness
1,000%.
would be important for you to have that awareness of it. But what you're saying, maybe as people pray for it and then they don't get nothing.
Yeah.
I don't really know that because I don't get attached to that.
Yes.
But maybe they feel like discouraged. Or why should I even try?
Right. It goes hand in hand.
Because some people say, oh, if God wanted it, it would happen. And some they say, oh, I didn't get that house. Remember, I didn't get that house. If God wanted,
That's what you wanted.
Yeah.
maybe if God, si Dios quería, I would have got that house. That escrow would have gone through.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you lose that one to get a better one.
Yeah. Well, you also submitted an offer 100,000 below. Come on.
So it's not.
Yeah.
Don't look at it as an scapegoat either.
Right.
Because that could also be in a scapegoat conversation.
Right.
Because
They
sometimes
don't trust or believe
right.
that it's going to come when it's going to come.
And it'll come. It's coming when it's supposed to. Whether a week, a month, 6 months.
Right. I mean, when God wants you to learn a lesson, you're going to learn it no matter what.
Right.
And sometimes they don't learn them. That's why they don't get it.
Yeah.
And they keep on going in circles with the
And they
same one.
keep
We all
going
do
in
it. Everybody.
circles.
I got a friend that drinks Coke. You're like, don't drink Coke. We're like, dude, they said Coke in the fridge. You get them off. It's like, it's like, did you sneak it in there? But we all go through it. Like I said, we're still human. So,
Right.
it's a tough challenge.
This has been an incredible conversation. And
absolutely.
I think maybe we're going to have to bring them back in the near future again
For take
another
2
episode
Yeah.
because, I mean, we still have a lot to cover and we didn't get a chance to all in one.
I mean, after all the adversities you've been through, right? What's one thing that you can tell the youth to be like, hey, you know what? At this point, I recommend you guys do this, or just give them like a direction of where to go. What would you say that would be?
I think a deep part would be, I also saw this the other day. We see an external gratification, an external answer to our question, but inside is always the answer.
Right.
So if you want to be,
Ooh, that's deep.
yes, it's always in there.
Right.
So, as deep as you want to study yourself,
Mhm.
study your grandparents, study your parents,
Mhm.
study your history, your heritage.
Right.
And as you go back, as you reverse engineer it,
Right.
you're going to run into more gifts of yourself.
Right. So as opposed to
Discovery.
going out there and studying the fruit, you want to study the root.
Exactly. So even if do you guys watch Black Panther? You guys watch Black
Yeah.
Panther movie?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he goes and he drinks the little drink and then he goes talks to the ancestors?
Yeah.
He just went backwards more, right?
Yeah.
So he wants the answer to the future. He drinks that drink and he goes backwards to the ancestors. So I think I know this because if you study your gifts that you have, you probably inherited something from your mom and dad, and then they inherit. So it's all DNA. It goes backwards. Like
Mm-hmm.
we inherit our trauma. We inherit some spiritual, psychology, good, bad, all these things. But we also inherit the gifts.
Right.
But if we don't trace back where it all comes. Hey, I'm good at really speaking to people. I'm good at making a connection. Like, don't be an accountant, sit in the office, stare at the wall all day. You know?
Right. When
You
you
know,
have
I'm good
a
at
gift
this.
of
Well, go, what I make,
jab.
go do that.
Yeah.
I'm good at this. Go. So the answer within every single one of us is within ourselves, within our parents, or within our culture, and just look for the guidance. Go backwards with it. That's what I would say with that.
Absolutely.
Wow.
What do you think, Venny?
Dude, we've gotten a lot of great stuff. But the bottom line is you've never even thought about quitting. You've always thought about bettering.
No.
And what drives you is your passion and your family.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
what's
just
got you where you're at.
you could just get rid of the word, period. Just don't even, don't
Right.
even have the word,
Well,
call it a speed bump. I don't know. Right? I don't know.
Right.
Rephrase it. Call it a speed bump. It's a little bump on the road. Oh, that's not a bad little bump. I always call it a bad round or a good round.
Yes.
But with you guys, and even with anybody that has had thoughts of quitting, think about your whole life and think about, like, let's just say 80% of it was shitty or bad things happen. Wouldn't you don't you think about those 20%?
Yeah.
Right? Because the human mind is weird. Like, it's a very weird.
Yeah, I mean, even sometimes there's people that are living 90% of their life great, and it's just 10% that's a little bit bad. But all they focus is on the bad.
The bad.
Right.
No. Yeah. Take that little, like, take the good. I mean, people that are on their deathbeds, and what was the greatest part of your life? And they worked 80-hour weeks and they did all this, but remember they watched their kid play soccer, like your pops saw you. Well, I don't know if you ever got to watch you play soccer because he had to work a lot. But
he worked a lot. He only saw me play once.
That's probably his greatest. Lifetime. That's probably. If you talk to your dad, probably it's probably gonna be the greatest feeling for him. It's probably gonna be watching you play soccer. So you have to hold on to those little parts, and that's why you don't quit, because you're gonna, the little parts hold it together. Right?
Absolutely, that it's the glue.
It does. Sometimes, like, it's just, you want to quit. Like, man, that little part was, like, so amazing.
Yeah.
I do all that bad shit and go through all the bad stuff to get that little part, right?
Right. But sometimes when you're going through, you're like, shit, what is going on? What is going on? But that's a blessing right there. Right. The grit.
Ask a woman 9 months to carry the baby, right?
Yeah.
And the pain to have the baby. Mm-hmm. Say, would you do that again or not? Or come on, dude. Yeah. She's like, oh, I do 1,000 times over.
Wow.
And it's like, I can't even imagine pushing another human out, right? We've been there when our wives gave birth, and we're like, man, I'm gonna pass out. I need an epidural. Wow. I asked the doctor, give me a shot, doctor. Shit. I don't know how we hold it together, but women, for going through all that and creating
the strength
and creating a being, dude. Like, that's more.
Yeah.
So that, women are the ultimate non-quitters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're going to interview a woman next.
Maybe you should.
We do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, you guys, hope you guys got what you guys needed in order for you guys to push yourselves to that next level. Thank you for joining us in this third episode of No Quitters.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, guys. George. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
There's the gold.